Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peeps that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Hey everybody, welcome to this wonderful Wednesday episode of The Day with Trae. I'm the guest host, Deaunte, stepping in for my sister Trae, who is off all week. So you got me today. And before we begin with this wonderful episode, I need you to go to whereweconverge.com to learn more about The Day with Trae, Back to Besa, as well as We Live in Color, and Seattle News and Brews, which airs tonight at 7 p.m. right here on Converge Media. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as we're going in today's episode, it is extremely important for us because we have Alexis Mercedes Rinck. I just want to get right into it. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little damp today. We've been outdoor knocking in the rain, but doing good.
No pain, no gain?
That's right.
Okay. I have to ask you some questions. Now, you're running for a citywide council seat. What is the difference between citywide council seat and city council seat?
Yeah, this is one of the first things that people actually kind of ask me about. When I tell them I'm running for Seattle City Council, they're like, which district? I don't know if you're even my district representative. And I say, well, actually, Seattle City Council has 7 district-specific council offices, but 2 citywides. And so your district-specific council offices, you know, they're really focused on what's happening within your neighborhood, how roads may feel to really what's around the corner. The citywide positions, from my view, have a focus on weaving things together. And that's kind of been one of the coolest things about running citywide, is really finding what are the shared themes and issues happening across the city, from West Seattle, Phinney Ridge, Othello, Central. It's been really cool to kind of weave things together that way.
And you said something there. What are some of the things that you have seen in all of these areas?
I mean, housing. Housing is the number one thing. Housing and affordability broadly have been huge issues facing almost every community in the city. People really concerned, you know, even if it's not their own housing, thinking about for their kids or grandkids, if they're going to be able to stay within the city that they call home, stay close to their family connections. So affordability for the city is just something that's really front of mind for folks.
Yeah, and with that, you know, I hear those concerns. And what are some of the plans that you do have in the areas of housing? Housing is a really important conversation for all of our community folks, and really shout out to our folks that are still out there in the central district.
That's right.
But when we think about gentrification, and we also think about the housing crisis with some of the organizations that have said housing first, but some folks are still unhoused. What are we doing in that space?
Yeah, housing is such a complex topic because we're talking about homelessness is wrapped up in there, and we know homelessness is a housing problem. And then we're also talking about affordability, opportunity, and then weaving in the fact that most of our city's history of housing development and our land use has fueled displacement for Black and Brown community. And so we have an upcoming opportunity to be remedying our land use when we're talking about the comprehensive plan. And this is a required activity for the city to be doing. It's tied up to the Growth Management Act, which is actually statewide. And while this might sound like a wonky kind of policy thing, it's really important because ultimately this plan is really dictating where are we going to be building housing across the city, which neighborhoods will be getting a more density of housing, more multifamily and apartment options. And this is how we can really start to right some of the wrongs of our past and talk about meaningful anti-displacement strategies. And so I've been a strong advocate for making sure that we're having a comprehensive plan that allows for more housing in every neighborhood across our entire city, while also making sure that we're doing real transit-oriented development. We have a lot of cool transit investments, especially with light rail coming online. So how do we make housing opportunities around areas where we have transit, while also making sure we have a meaningful anti-displacement strategy and put our money where our mouth is when we're talking about homeownership opportunities and right of return, especially for folks that have been displaced, namely from the Central District and other areas of the city.
And thank you for that. I also want to ask too, like, you're running for this seat, and what would make you run? Because as a person that has, I've read up that you have already done community advocacy, what would make you run for this seat? Because most folks would say, well, you could just still get the work done with just advocating. But what makes you want to run for this city council seat?
Yeah.
Citywide council seat.
Oh gosh, you know, working both in the realm of advocacy and doing community organizing work, I pulled in some skills of being able to really bring people together around solutions and make things happen. And I think there's something so underrated about community organizing because it pushes you to be operating in a space of rallying folks around who are often activated and in pain. Many times organizing is as a result of some type of injustice, and being able to organize a community that is activated emotionally, passionate, and being able to bring folks around to try and effectuate change. The skills to do that, it is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot, and it's underrated, but that's what it means to move the work forward. But I've also been someone who has then spent my career working in health and human services. So understanding how our human services system operates, so like our system of how programs that many of our community members depend on, how those systems kind of work. And some of the regional policy making that happens to support deployment of getting resources out to community. And so I bring this blend of someone who's done community organizing work and then someone who's kind of worked in these systems and seen firsthand how they fail people oftentimes and how undernourished and under-resourced they are. And wanting to bring those perspectives together, as well as someone who's worked in budgets, to this moment to be able to serve in an elected office and champion those skills and that expertise on behalf of community.
Absolutely. And we have some more conversations because we got to talk about soap. We got to talk about inclusivity, and we also have to talk about public safety. But we're going to unpack that in just a moment. We're going to take one quick break. You are watching The Day with Trae.
Washington's charter public schools prioritize equitable learning opportunities for all students and strive for openness at every level. Teachers work with parents to build a trusting and supportive learning environment for students. To learn more, visit wacharters.org.
Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle is bringing a whole lot of star power to town as Taraji P. Henson and Hill Harper headline their 23rd annual breakfast happening November 22nd at the Seattle Convention Center Summit. Grab your tickets now at urbanleague.org.
Welcome back to The Day with Trae. I'm your guest host, Deaunte Damper, and I have Alexis Mercedes Rinck here. Hello again.
Hello.
We are having some, well, not tough conversations, but we are asking you. You're currently running for office, and there are more questions to unpack. We went into your why you're running, and now one of the main conversations that we're having in community goes beyond housing. It is about public safety. We have seen gun violence in our community. We have seen very many things. What is, while running, what is your plan to help rectify or make community members feel more safe in community?
Yeah. And I think what's so often lost on the issue of public safety is that we try and simplify, and the fact is making our communities safer is complex. We need to be working on the end of doing prevention work, but then also making sure that we have response systems that work for everybody. So I've been clear from the beginning, we need a public safety system that has a quick response and a right response, and improving first responder staffing across the board is key to that. I think there's a lot of promise with the city's new care team, and for folks who don't know about the care team, this is an alternative response team that has behavioral health professionals to support de-escalating situations that I think we can agree maybe don't require a police officer per se, but need a different kind of response. but also looking at the fact that there's a lot more we can be doing to prevent instances of violence from happening in the first place. And gun violence prevention is huge in that. And we've seen far too much gun violence just in the course of even this campaign that I've been brought to experience in our community has had to grapple with. And so ensuring that we're funding gun violence prevention programs that we know work and showing up in communities, community passageways, a key program and partner in advancing that. But then also we will have the upcoming state legislative session where there'll be an opportunity to pass statewide legislation, common sense gun legislation like permit to purchase. That would be something I'd be pushing for as well, while always ensuring and being clear that our communities are safest when we're healthy and housed, which is why I've been so vocal in pushing for increasing our investments into affordable housing and programs that keep people healthy and whole and support recovery.
Yeah. Speaking of support recovery, we were just reading over the soda stay out of drug areas ban that is happening out here in the areas of downtown, and want to kind of know your thoughts on where you stand with that. What does that look like if in office? What are some of the things that you plan on working with community members, not just in the areas of housing? When we were talking about public safety, we're also talking about our folks who may be impacted by homelessness and maybe even the fentanyl crisis that is happening in our community.
Absolutely. Well, I've been vocally against the SODA legislation and have been vocal about my opposition to it for a myriad of reasons. One, we've had laws like this on the books before in Seattle, and we've learned from those experiences the racially disproportionate outcomes when they were implemented and who got issued SODA orders, stay out of drug area orders. But we even have a study from 2010 from the University of Washington, which actually highlights the kinds of harm that was caused for folks that were issued a SODA order. Things like loss of connection to people, the inability to access services, and loss of job opportunity. So I've been so vocal to say, you know, we can learn from our recent history, and we should be, paired with the fact that drawing lines on maps to say you can no longer be in this area doesn't get to the root of addressing some of the issues that we do see impacting the identified areas. So we're, as I see this legislation, it's much more tied to displacing people rather than trying to get to the root of trying to support people who are in crisis. And we as a region have gone back and forth around decriminalization and criminalization of drug use. And it hasn't fundamentally changed personal drug use. But what we have learned is throughout the years is that we have effective treatment options and people do recover. What we haven't done as a region is appropriately scale those treatment options and be able to truly be able to have a system where we have treatment on demand. And I know I've talked to folks across our entire community from Green Lake to King Street who are ready to end their addiction and find themselves unable to get a resource and get a recovery resource into that treatment option. And that's a reality I want to address in a pretty immediate term. That's actually how we start addressing this.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I also think that, you know, if we are talking about public safety, if we are also talking about the soda ban, one of the questions that has not been asked during this race is how important intersectionality is to our community, and what is your past work with working in the areas of intersectionality, and also advocating for folks within our sector community.
Absolutely. Well, just from a professional sense, you know, I worked in homelessness response and system work, and much of my work as a director in planning and thinking about how are we actually planning and creating a system that truly meets folks' needs required taking an intersectional lens and really looking at the fact that, you know, when we're talking about homelessness, just to be specific, there are so many ways people can experience homelessness, can be pushed into homelessness, and then your interactions with the homelessness response system may differ based on the identities that you carry. And so when we're talking about the fact that still locally, disproportionately, Black folks and Indigenous folks disproportionately experience homelessness, and we when we look across the system, we have a limited set of providers that provide culturally competent care to those communities. Layering in also when we're talking about the realities of our LGBTQIA community experiencing homelessness disproportionately, and really combining that also with a racial justice lens and looking at the intersection of being a queer person and also being Black and brown. This was part of the charge that I really took up when doing our system analysis work, but when I was also developing and working on our plans, would run these focus groups using tools from the People's Institute Northwest, our the racial justice strategy tool, to actually think through and ask ourselves, what is the history of policy and what is the history of these groups in this community, and how are we actually fundamentally addressing needs and understanding the complexities of identity? And we could expand and even talk about the complexities of gender at play when we're talking about folks experiencing homelessness. We could talk then about those who have experiences in the criminal legal system, people who are living with disabilities and have mobility challenges trying to access services. And so that is kind of the lens that I've brought into my policy work, not just using that lens, but engaging directly with folks who hold those identities to be able to understand fully how their needs may or may not be getting met, and how can we fundamentally change our programs and services so we are able to authentically serve those who are disproportionately impacted.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that as well. I think that so many times we talk about, yes, buzzwords like public safety, but what is it? What deeper dives are we taking in, and how do we know that with you so many community folks that have threw out so many buzzwords, but not very actionary when it comes to intersectionality, when it comes to impacted folks. We hear what they say, but sometimes they don't follow through. How do we know that what you're saying is different?
I mean, I think accountability is key.
Yeah.
I think accountability and how an office, when successful in office, operates and engages with community on a regular basis is how we evaluate for that. So I know how I intend to run our office, should we be successful, is having a clear line between our community partners, early and often. I've always taken an approach in my policy work around proactive engagement. Rather than having community be reactive and reach out to us to tell us what they think, being proactive and saying, hey, we're thinking about addressing this kind of issue, or we're hearing direct from community around an issue that needs to be problem solved and addressed, and having folks actively be a part of the decision making and process of informing what a solution looks like. And I think, the true way to be able to tell is to tell how a elected official really lives into what they're saying on the campaign trail is to watch how their office engages with community after they get into that position. And I know being able to demonstrate accountability means continuing that relationship and building on that relationship in community to make sure that there's always an open line of communication and hard conversations are happening. And there's just that dialogue and finding ways that we can continue to make spaces where we're having those discussions.
Okay. So with 6 days left until the day, what is one of the things tell us some things that you've learned about yourself while running for office?
Ooh. I've learned that I'm braver than I thought I was. This is not for the weak. And I've also learned just how much I love people actually in this process. And I've learned how little I knew as well. I think it has been the greatest honor to be brought in by so many different community-based organizations and community groups and just eagerly taught about individual neighborhood histories, or even the history of how something came to be. Our communities are so rich, and I've learned how much I've enjoyed and really just appreciated how much richness there is in this community. And I've also learned that I have a really action-oriented mindset, and I'm ready to get to really addressing these things. Like, let's move on from talking about it and let's start making movement. So I'm feeling antsy to be able to be a day one council member and start addressing these very real issues that people have been so kind to bring me in and teach me about.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for coming here today. But before we go, if you could just give your call to action. We got 6 days left. Tell community what you would want them to know.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Deaunte, for having me. My name is Alexis Mercedes Rinck. I'm running for Seattle City Council to fight for a city that works for all of us and not just the ultra wealthy few. And I want to make sure everyone also votes on your entire ballot. It is a big ballot this year. There are a number of statewide initiatives. There's also a local levy. So take a moment and read up. There's going to be a lot of areas to vote on. And so make sure you are checking out every part of the ballot. And you can check out more about our campaign at www.alexisforseattle.com.
Thank you so much, Alexis, for coming on. 6 days, regardless of anything, I just hope that everybody that is running for office is doing what they have to do to make sure that their self-care is okay, which is always important. So thank you so much for taking the time out for coming on today. We're going to take one more break and we will be back with The Day with Trae.
A world of wonder awaits at Pacific Northwest Ballet's The Nutcracker. Treat your loved ones to the Northwest's favorite holiday tradition at Seattle Center's McCall Hall. Visit pnb.org.
Here on Back to Vesa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Vesa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities. Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle is bringing a whole lot of star power to town as Taraji P. Henson and Hill Harper headline their 23rd annual breakfast happening November 22nd at the Seattle Convention Center Summit. Grab your tickets now at urbanleague.org.
You on my mind a lot, don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got you in my pocket spot. Yeah, this babe, need you every day. You seem like the barging down, got my heart no barging in. From the bed to the floor to the couch, might wake the neighbors up. Break you in and break you out. In the end, we gon' make a child. Then we gon' hit the show. Part 2, we don't need no pause. You miss me, we gon' get tipsy, don't need a power shot.
Copy my steal. Face the fact that. Copy my steal. Face the fact that.
And welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I would just like to thank Alexis Mercedes Rinck for coming in today and talking about why she is running for the citywide council seat. I want to just encourage community for a minute. We have 6 days to vote. Regardless of how you may feel, your vote matters. And it's also important, no matter who side you may be on or whether you're whatever, Democrat, Republican, or independent, you have a right to use your voice. So part of that is voting. And we encourage folks to, regardless of wherever you stand with yourself and make sure that you are advocating for your children, your family, your grandparents. When in my spaces, when I voted, I think about my grandparents every time that I vote because I know that they wanted my voice to be heard. And when I put my name on that ballot and fill out who I want, I'm making the choice in the memory of my legacy and my family. So remember to get out there and vote. But above all else, what I do need you to remember to do is tune in tomorrow for an amazing episode of The Day with Trae. We have the wonderful Fancy who's gonna come up in here and grace our community space. But in the meantime, I need y'all to do me one more favor. Walk with love. Have a great Wednesday.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.